Hey folks, this is Mike Lundy with Fish Alaska Magazine here today, and I'm going to give a little tutorial about the importance of an angling journal. If you picked up this month's Fish Alaska Magazine, I have an article entitled 5 Ways to Catch More Kings Than a Fly, and number 5 is about an angling journal. So, I'm going to talk about how important it is to have an angling journal and what variables you should have in there. So, the first thing you should use is a Write in the Rain journal. It basically has waterproof paper in here, so in case you were to drop in the water or fishing in rainy conditions, you can still record it with a pencil. And you don't want to use a pen because it would bleed. But these are highly useful when you're out on your fishing trips. Not just for kings in particular, but other fishes as well that we have in Alaska. So, I thought I'd do a breakdown of what we should include in an angling journal. So, before you start a fishing trip each morning, you should document some of the following. So, we broke it down by two components. One, environmental variables, and the second one, what I call angling statistics. So, the first thing I would include with an environmental variable would be water and air temperature. All salmon are affected, all fish behavior is dictated by water temperature. It totally drives their behavior and how they act, how they react to a fly, what habitat types they're going to interact in when they migrate through their journey to their spawning grounds. So both water and air temperature are important variables to record. Barometric pressure. Luckily with cell phone technology we can look that up on an iPhone or an Android and record that. Photo period. Recording how much light availability there is as far as sunlight, if it's overcast, or if you're fishing late at night, or complete darkness. Water clarity. I usually record it as the following. I usually record it as stained, dirty, or clear. And visibility will go as follows. So if you're fishing in muddy conditions, the water clarity is generally less than 2 feet of visibility. Clear stained water is generally about 2 to 3.5 feet of visibility. Clear water is usually defined as 4 feet of visibility or greater. Wind direction and speed. These two variables have an impact on current flow and speed. So these are two important things to record. Another important one is moon phase. Moon phase has a huge impact on tidal cycles, which therefore drives the amount of king salmon entering the stream. So new moon phase and full moon phase are the two distinct phases to look for. So I definitely recommend looking at that. You can even look at a calendar in advance when you plan your trips out to record those in your journal. Stream flow. You can look this up on the USGS website online and figure out what the stream flow is. And that way you can dictate what sink tip you're going to use and what length you're going to use as well. Habitat type. Each time you fish a specific spot, I recommend writing it down in your journal. So for example, if you caught 4 kings out of a run, I would write down 4 kings and then run, and then riffle, pull, and if you want to get down more to microhabitat basics as I discussed in the article, you can do that as well. Alright. So the angling statistics. This usually follows a fishing trip. So the first one is called CPUE, or catch per unit of effort. So how this works is, let's say I fished for 4 hours and I caught 4 kings. My angling effort with a day would be 1 king per hour. That's an important statistic to look at because you can, over the off season, you can assess which habitat spots are more productive than others based off your catch per unit of effort. The second variable, GPS points. Anytime you fish a specific habitat spot, recording the GPS points is critical. That way you don't forget where the spot is if you haven't fished it for a long period of time. Technique and presentation. Write down the technique and presentations you used when you fished throughout your trip. Fourth variable, sink tip and length. It's important to write down the length of the sink tip you're using in the sink rate. So for example, in last year's angling journal, which I have right here, have it all labeled, December 23rd of May 2014. In that specific journal, the most productive sink tip for kings last year was a 10-foot tip of T11. So recording the length and the rate of the sink tip is great. even if you don't catch any fish, it's still important to record that information, because you know on the next day not to use that specific length and sink rate. On the other hand, if the water conditions change, you have a good guesstimation factor of what to use. These next three variables, fly length, fly color, and fly material, these are three very, very important variables right here. So at the end of the day, it's very important to write down how many fish you caught, or even if you hooked, at least lost one, how many fish you hooked, what fly pattern. So when I tie my flies up, I usually write down the length of the fly, the color or the color combination it's tied in, and the material. So if it's rhea or ostrich, more flash, minimal flash, lots of marabou, a little bit of marabou. So those three important components are important to look at, because for the following season or in the wintertime, you can look at your results and interpret what fly pattern was most productive. Then you can tie more of those up for the following season. Habitat type kind of coincides with environmental variables. You can look at the results and figure out which run or which pull or which riffle was most productive. And then the last thing is results. Like I mentioned, what I would do is two things. One, I would look at an Excel spreadsheet, like so. And you can start entering information. So let's say, for example, I fished June. And let's say here we had fly color. We go down. Here's the first 10 days in June. Let's say most of the fish were caught blue, chartreuse, those first couple days. Let's say this day it was black, blue, black and blue, then we'll go purple, purple. And let's say this is the number of fish caught. Let's say here we caught 4, 7. These are just making up numbers for an example here. Alright, so if you look at that, so over the off season, what you can do is you can create graphs with Excel. And for example, I can determine over this 10-day period in June what fly color combination was the most productive. And the second thing you could even do is you can even open up a Microsoft Word document. You can open up a Word document and you can type up a little summary of your results and file it away on your computer. That way, as you prepare for the following season, you can get all your riggings put together, all your flies put together, and kind of get mentally dialed in for the following season. This is exactly what us fisheries biologists use and technicians we go out in the field. We have to record all this. We have to record all this important environmental information so we can assess fish behavior and see how it looks in our results during the off season. So that's a basic rundown of what include an angling journal. And Right in the Range journals are the way to go. This is a typical size one right here. You can find them at most fly fishing stores, Lowe's, H2 Hardware, Walmart. You can even order them online. For us people in Fairbanks, the Surveyors Exchange has them, along with Big Ray's Fly Shop. And they have a vast variety of sizes. Like this one's a 4.5 by 6, I believe. And the other cool thing is they actually have a rule, they have a measuring length on the back, so you can actually measure your flies, which is exactly what I use when I'm tying them, so I can make sure I'm staying within that preferred range for success. So, highly recommend getting these. Highly important for doing this. I guarantee you if you do this, you'll be a more successful angler, not just for targeting kings, but other species, but for both fly fishing and conventional. And this is Mike Lundy with Fish Alaska Magazine, signing off. Thanks.